with anybody who wants to do it. And it looks like we've got a ton of people on, which is great. I did not think our first call would be this packed. So I'm going to get into it. Today will mostly be kind of introductory and kind of discussing what our um, objectives are going to be, like what this is really all about. And so this is kind of a small piece of a bigger thing that I've been working and building towards for 2 years. And a lot of you guys you'll hear more about that later as this kind of progresses. But you know, if anybody on, I don't think there's really anybody on here that maybe doesn't at least know a little bit about who I am. But so for anybody who doesn't, and I think really just for everybody here, if we could just run through real quick, everybody that is on the call, kind of say, you know, 45, 60 seconds, who you are, where you're from, what you do, just so we can kind of start to build a little bit of a recognition between everybody who's going to be on the calls and hopefully continue to add more and more people. But I'll go first. So my name is Jeremiah Bryant. I was a spray foam contractor for many years. I was a third generation drywall and insulation contractor, originally from South Central Indiana, from a small town called Morgantown. Currently, their population is 770 people. So I think might have been half that whenever I was growing up. But moved to Oklahoma City, where I'm at now. Started an insulation company called Thrice Energy Solutions. Started it from nothing, one foam rig that I bought from Spray Easy with a Reactor 2 in it, and took off, didn't know anything, made every mistake you can make 5 times. And but we were lucky. I got into a lot of different things, doing ratings and testing, got certified through Energy Star and BPI, and then started doing military work. And then wound up that I sold my insulation business in 2022 because I started mostly doing consulting, working with, again, mostly defense stuff, but also with architects, engineers, developers. And after I sold, I launched my company now, Factum, which is all education for spray foam and insulation contractors and HVAC contractors and raters. And so that's what this is. This is a part of Factum, my company, and try to continue to create new ways to bring spray foam contractors together and kind of enrich the experience of being in this business for guys. So that's me, that's who I am. And then once everybody kind of gets a chance to introduce themselves real quick, we'll kind of talk about the future of what this call, what we want it to be and where it's going, and kind of discuss some short topics today. So if we want to I'll kind of just shout out, everybody's name. If you want to just, like I said, name, where you're from, what you're doing. And then, and we'll just start with Manish. Why don't you go first? You're on mute.
Yep, there we go. All right. I am a small contractor in Western Michigan on the shore of Lake Michigan. Been in business for about 7 years. Do almost exclusively closed cell, but I have gone to the dark side and started adding open cell and cellulose to my offerings. Just finished a BPI training that was actually offered by one of the utilities here in Michigan. It was a 6 week long program that was super educational. I did 4 certificates. Jeremiah had talked about BPI in the past, and I found it really helpful. The funny thing is that they actually paid us to be there and paid for the instructors and materials and everything like that. Super educational. I don't know if your utilities are doing anything like that. It might be worth looking into. It was 3 days a week for 6 weeks, so a big commitment, but definitely got a lot out of it. Looking forward to seeing where we can go next, and stoked to connect with all you guys here. I think it's gonna be Jeremiah's, I think, pretty good at spotting some interesting people, strong people. So hoping to learn a lot, see where we can go.
Jared Holdeman, you go next.
Yes. If you can hear me here. I had trouble getting on at first, internet connections here, but currently sitting in a motel here, the lobby. So I'm from Twin Falls, Idaho area, and I bought a small company from my uncle in 2018. And since then, I've taken it full time. He was running it part time, and that's been my full time gig ever since. And I ran it solo for about the first 6 months, and then I started hiring help. And we've slowly grown, and right now I've got a couple guys that I work with. We've got I just hired a new salesman, and so that's the newest thing we're trying here. Um, that's kind of new for me, so it's a real leap of faith to bring on a salesman to help out. I've got a couple crews that we spray with, that couple sprayer crews, and we're pretty much only closed cell foam. We do some residential, we do quite a bit of commercial work, but that varies throughout the year and the times of year. So
All right.
that's me.
Todd Cook, can you talk?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah. Nice to tell you guys. I am not too far from Manish in West Michigan. What's up, Manish?
Hey, Todd, how you doing, man?
Doing well. Been spraying foam for just about 6 years. Mostly just closed cell. All kinds of different applications. Didn't have a whole lot of new builds. I mostly did directly for the customer, or in a lot of situations when the customer generates their own house or project. Mostly a one-man show. I had some workers, maybe one extra guy helping me out here and there, and started a podcast. Some of you may know Foam and Friends. I started that about 4 or 5 months ago. Got to get some more out there. Almost had Jeremiah on there a little while ago. But anyway, and then recently landed a job with SPI as an account manager in Michigan. So I am getting out of spray and foam. My shoulder is telling me that this is the right time. So I am selling my rig, and I'm gonna be just doing that, pretty much that in the podcast.
Nice. Brad, why don't you go next?
Yeah, we started the company in 2011, so we've been doing insulation for about 13 years or so. We're in North Texas area, just west of Dallas Fort Worth. And it's my dad and I run the business, and then we've got a few crews of guys working for us, and we've got quite a few building science certifications as well. So
Well, you're in good company. Tyler Fisk. Everybody knows who you are, but do it anyways.
Hey guys, Tyler Fisk here. Do you hear me all right? I got headphones in.
Yep.
Cool. Hey, I'm up here in Rhode Island. I work for AccuFoam, been here for a little over 3 years now. Grew up doing insulation, every different kind. Got involved in SPFA, been on the board of directors, I think 4 or 5 times. Just excited to be in spray foam and get fired up.
Hell yeah. Chris Ellison.
Hey everybody, how you doing? I got into spray foam, I guess about 12 years ago. I was bought a rig, had no business buying a rig, and bought a used rig from Ohio. It never got it spraying. It was actually they were using it for polyurea, and had everybody around here wanting foam, and there was nobody to do it. So I ended up subbing out the work to folks out of Austin area, and trying to build up enough clientele to justify getting a rig. And in I guess about 8 years ago, I got my first rig. That was in 2016, and just started from there. There was still much work, and really, I was relying on the sprayers to, do everything. I was really didn't learn too much. Knew the general idea of it, I guess, but relied on them, and that was a bad idea because they, different guys, whatever's going on, they'll take a shortcut, and um, learned as I went, learned the hard way, and fix everything that was messed up. Still fixing stuff that's messed up. I just fixed a job the other day from 5 years ago, and it's we added rigs, got up to 4 rigs, and couldn't keep the quality up. It was too many places to be at once. Seemed like if I wasn't on a job, it was something was wrong, and so we scaled back. Right now, we're at 2 rigs. Got a big military project down south that got a rig there through there. It was supposed to be a 2-month job. It's turning into 4, and it's going really well. But 1 rig here, and it's work's kind of declined a little bit, but still a bunch. I could keep 3 rigs busy, but I choose not to just because quality. It's finding the guys. I let a guy go the other day just because I couldn't trust him. Couldn't trust his work, and basically every sprayer that's going to spray for me is going to be trained here, and we'll build from there if we need to. If not, we'll keep it simple. But it's lots of open sell, trying to move everything to close sell. It's we're in a very bad market. It's just outside of Boston and Central Texas, and there was hardly any close sell when I first started, and now a lot of the retros were trying to make it close sell, and if they don't want to pay for it, then we ain't touching it. But other than that, it's love the business. It's I never learned how to spray, and I can build rigs. I can do anything as far as fix them. We fix other people's rigs, and I just moved my brother here from California, and he's going to learn from the bottom. So I'm spraying with him, and it's actually, I enjoy it quite a lot. It's sprayed my first full set, and after being in the air conditioner for about 5 years, and that was stepped on a nail right at the beginning of the job in the attic, and finished the day, sprayed a set, and ready for more.
Heck yeah. All right, Eric Gladson. Are you there, Eric? Oh, all right. We'll go past you. I think a lot of guys know Eric anyways. Tyler Bose.
Hey guys, how you doing? So I'm with Fire Stable Insulation now on the manufacturing side. I live in Windsor, Colorado. Started in spray foam officially about 15 years ago, and unofficially started working around spray foam and learning about it about 23 years ago when I was 15. So my dad was subbing spray foam out to a contractor, and I ended up helping on the job, scraping studs and stuff for him, and started learning all about it. I guess they didn't scare me off enough to keep me from starting my own contracting business 15 years ago, and now we're
Where's your truck?
now I'm on the dark side, on the manufacturing side. So love the business, love the industry. It's been awesome to us, and as you guys know, it's a great crowd of people here. So looking forward to this call.
Nice. Scott Bernie, my boy.
How's it going? I'm Scott. I'm up here in Northeast Texas, kind of on the other side of the Metroplex from Brad, but we get that fun DFW market where about 2,000 rigs roll out the door every day. So we're mostly new construction, about 60% new construction residential and 40% new construction metal building commercial. We've kind of shifted gears in the last 6 to 8 months or so, just because the market's gotten so much tougher, and you get a lot of that 60 cents a board foot type stuff out there. So we've kind of shifted gears and do a lot more of the commercial and specialty stuff that you've really got to kind of use your brain and your big insurance policies to be able to win, versus just playing the low pricing game. So been taking Jeremiah's classes for about the last 2 years, and the building science side of it has really helped our business in terms of selling our value and being an asset to like the custom home builders and our metal building guys. They pretty well don't even let anybody else bid it, just because they know that the building science side of it is that important. So it's kind of what we focus on. My guys are learning that side of it, and to be able to talk through it with the customer on why we do what we do, where we do it. So it's about it.
Sweet. Thanks, Scott. Jesse, can you talk?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right.
Yeah, I'm Jesse Buick up here in Neilburg, Saskatchewan, Canada. Got into spray foam, bought a rig 3 years ago. Came from, I was driving truck for 12 years and totaled the rig and took my insurance money and put it into this. Not sure, not necessarily the recommended way to do it, but yeah, it's been a learning curve. Having some people to talk to and mentors along the way have been a huge help, and hoping to learn more here from all you guys and make connections in the industry to try to do a little better. Yeah, we're mostly a lot of agricultural and light industrial kind of stuff, so not a lot of new construction, but residential, mostly the farmers keeping us going these days. Been great.
Awesome. Thanks, Jesse. Tyrell.
Yeah, Tyrell here. We are up in the Amarillo area. Actually live north of Amarillo a little ways. So just got one rig. I have a crew that runs it, does a really good job. We do probably 50%, 60% closed cell, and the rest is open cell. Metal buildings, some new residential construction, and some commercial. Yeah, that's about it.
Nice. Who we got left here? Nick. You're muted, Nick.
There, if I get my buttons straight, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, so here, I told you, Jeremiah, here you go. Here's what you were looking for this morning. There's the fire.
Nice. Yeah, I want one of those.
For years. Hey, anyways, Nick Bloomberg from Macon, Missouri. Got in the business in 2006. I tell a lot of people I had a weak moment. They ask how we got into business. I actually started on the cellulose side. A guy that had done some night and weekends projects, wanted to sell his rig, told me it was a weekend gig only. You couldn't make this a full-time job. So he will gladly tell you that that was wrong. About 3 years later, we got into spray foam. So I've been in spray foam about 14 years now. We didn't have any of this when we started. I think a lot of you guys can relate. We didn't have help. We jumped in, we started learning. It was a lot of hard knocks. And we learned a lot from that. So that was a good side of it, but this is a great collaboration of people, especially with Spray Foam Worldwide now, getting answers. We started with one rig, moved up to 2 rigs. We've scaled back as well. It's hard to find good help. It's hard to trust people. So we've moved back to 1 spray foam rig, but we've also started into distribution. So I'm excited actually to help and teach people the correct ways to do things. Like I said, we didn't have that when we first started. So it's nice getting out and seeing some new customers, some new faces, some people that are eager to learn, and look forward to more collaboration with everybody.
Yeah. Okay. I think we got a few callers. I can't see names, but if anybody that's calling in wants to do quick intro, I know I got 2 texts from people that said they were on the call, but they weren't able to unmute. So if anybody else wants to go, or if I missed anybody, then go for it.
Yeah.
right.
Hey, this is Eric. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, perfect. I jumped on my laptop because I got a mic on here.
Nice.
So, I don't know. I've been in the industry. I started my own company in February 2013. Was working with another guy for a couple of years before that. Learned sprayed open cell and then transitioned to closed, which is what we should have done from the beginning up in northern Wisconsin. But he was an Icynene guy, so that's what I learned. But yeah, I don't know. I love just the networking. I'm a sole operator. Tried for a couple of years to find good help, and that was a failure. So it's me, myself, and I just giving her, picking what I can do. And sometimes the body says it's time for something else, but I just keep pushing through and just make it happen. But um I know most of you guys on this call. I don't know a couple of you, but looking forward to this group and just the positiveness we can glean from each other.
All right. Thank you, Eric.
Yep.
Anybody else? Speak now or forever.
Yes, my name is
Karen.
Hello.
We keep talking over each other.
Karen, go ahead. We'll let you go first.
Karen Weicker with Mrs. Spray Foam here. Got into the industry. My husband was a roofer. He got his water out for a spray foam rig in about 2018. We finally got one and saved enough for one in 2021. And I started Mrs. Spray Foam then. I thought I made the worst decision of my life for about a year. I was questioning all of my choices. And then on the 1-year anniversary, I won that rig from Spray Foam Worldwide in 2022. And now I'm the industry's biggest fangirl. I love this stuff. I love everybody in it, most people. And yeah, happy to be here.
Nice. All right. Who was the other person there?
Yes, my name is Caleb Buttrell, from Southern Missouri, West Plains. Just getting into the industry. Actually feel a little underexperienced to be on this call, but also excited to learn from everyone. It sounds like they have quite a bit of experience. Been in talks with Nick. Excited to learn from him. Actually just rolled in my rig last week, and Jeremiah talked to you a little bit last week as well. I just want to say hey and introduce myself, and I'm excited to listen and learn and sit back and take in everything and just say thank you for having me and teaching me everything, and hopefully I can continue to learn and get into this the right way. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think we had one more maybe, but maybe not.
You hear me, Jeremiah?
Yeah.
Howard Millsaps, Southeast
I know
Tennessee.
that voice.
Hey guys, started in 21. We're up to 2 rigs now and a fiberglass rig, open and closed cell, and we also do commercial roof foam and coatings. Just loving every minute of it. Was able this year to get my SPFA master installer and project manager, and just continuing education everywhere I can.
Heck yeah. All right. I think that's everybody. Anybody else? All right. We kept it under 30 minutes. Look at us. So thank you guys. Thank everybody for taking a minute. I know that sometimes we are not exactly the people of liking to talk in front of other people. If you would have told me that at any point before about 5 or 6 years ago that I would ever be able to stand up in front of a room full of people and talk about anything without just wanting to run out the back door, I would have never believed it. But I think that there is a considerable amount of value in a lot of different ways, especially as a contractor, as an entrepreneur, of putting yourself in situations where you have to get outside of your comfort zone and do things that maybe aren't physically excruciating. I think that that's probably the lie that I told myself for years, was that, well, I have absolutely no problem with putting myself outside of my comfort zone, because I worked in the oil field. I was hanging sheetrock when I was 13 years old. There's nothing I won't put myself through, when it comes to getting in there and putting in hard work. And I found out over time that I grew up in a family where work is what you did. My parents were deeply, deeply, deeply something between Amish and Pentecostal, and so we didn't go to public school. A lot of people are shocked to find that I was sort of homeschooled, but me and my four brothers started working. I was about 9 whenever I started going with my dad to job sites, working full time, and then we would come home in the evening and do a little bit of schoolwork. And so really, at the end of the day, while I certainly don't take anything away from physical labor and working hard, that's actually a comfort zone for a lot of us. I think that we sometimes limit ourselves by telling ourselves that, well, we get out here and we do this thing that most people wouldn't want to do. So we're very open to getting outside of our comfort zone. But as weird as it is, and as crazy as a lot of people that sit at desks every day think it is, sweat and dirt and blood and grit and sand in your eyes, and that's actually just the way most of us have lived our lives. That is the comfort zone. And so I think that where business owners and entrepreneurs die, figuratively speaking, is not being able to get outside of what we already find comfortable, because the business changes, the industry changes. And so I think that's a crucial piece of this. I hope that this is the last meeting where we can ever even spend enough time to let everybody do a quick introduction. I hope that I think there's 17 people on this call. I hope that it is 40 next week, because I think that what we want to achieve here, what I want to achieve, and what I think everybody else is going to benefit from the most is building this into something that we treat the way that religious people treat church, or the way that hunters treat going hunting, or the way that fishermen treat going fishing. I mean, when you see people who have dedicated their life to any number of things, whether it is a skill or a sport or a hobby or a religion or any number of things, there's a level of commitment to it that to a lot of people on the outside seems almost manic. When a person is so dedicated to something that, whether they've got a migraine or their legs in a cast, or they've had the worst week ever, or whatever it is, they're not going to let whatever this thing that's going on in their life, they're not going to let it impede them doing this thing, this thing that they've committed themselves to. And I think that it's important. I think that the industry is in a very transitionary period right now. There are things that, with federal laws being enacted, codes changing, economics, I think really all over the world, but certainly here in North America, I mean, Canada, Mexico, United States, economically speaking, in the past, we have really benefited from a pretty luxurious lifestyle when you look at a lot of the other places in the world when it comes to housing. The United States is, I'm in Oklahoma, where it's doubly so, that housing is extremely affordable and the cost of living is very low. But when you look at what's happening in the economy, Mexico, Canada, United States, even though we are all importing and exporting to other places, we're all kind of impacted by what goes on because we're all, connected. And there is a lot of trade and things, but globally the economy is starting to just have this ripple effect because all of these different countries are trading and importing and exporting goods, and we've got all of this financial fallout from COVID, and then you've got again code changes and these laws that are enacted regarding blowing agents or any number of things. And then there's just what you're dealing with in your market. And I think that's kind of the focus of this call is I want, if we're going to have any main focus, is that you are not an island. You are not alone in this. And I think that it's hard to not feel that way, because when I was running my contracting business, I didn't talk to my wife about a lot of this stressful stuff. I didn't want to put that on her. I was the one that made the decision to quit my job and start a spray foam insulation business. And there was a lot of times that I was driving to work at 4:30 in the morning and thinking, I've ruined us. I have ruined my family because this is bad. We are losing money, or I'm on my way to this job site because our guys oversprayed, this guy's whatever, they oversprayed the outside of his entire big, nice, beautiful house. And what are we going to do here? Or, no matter what I do, I cannot get our pricing where it needs to be. So I'm not talking to my wife about it. I'm not really talking to anybody about it. And at that point, I didn't know about many industry organizations. I think Spray Foam Worldwide started right around the time that I started my business, but I didn't know about it, not at first. And so it was like, there was this feeling of like, well, there's nobody else that's going through what I'm going through. And then I think that I look at the industry today, and there are things like SPFA and Spray Foam Worldwide. And you do have a lot of guys seeing that there's, other guys going through it. And I want to be very careful. I want to make it very clear that I think that Spray Foam Worldwide and SPFA and NICE and I think all these organizations are good for the industry, but I also see a blind spot that I felt like I wanted to try to fill. And so I want to make sure that that I clarify what I mean by that. And certainly this is not me presenting this as any of these other organizations are doing something wrong. But when you go to these events and you hear people talk, you hear it all the time. I've heard it at the last two major spray foam industry events I've been to, where one or multiple people are saying, I came last year and it was so good for my business. I got so much good out of it. But then I went back home and spent that next year or 6 months or whatever it was trying to run my business, and things have been tough. We're struggling, we're getting undercut on pricing, we can't keep good sprayers, you name it. And then that's the thing, that's the story, is every time is I was so stressed and I was so busy that I almost didn't come. I was this close to not coming. And I see a lot of guys that used to come religiously that don't anymore, or don't come consistently. Now I see a lot of new guys that are coming, but it's 1 or 2 times a year that we're going to this event. You come in the door and you see all these different things going on. You've got booths and, vendors and all these educational things, and you get flooded. It's just almost overwhelming. You're just getting dumped on all of this information, and I remember the first one I went to was in Austin, Texas. And I went home thinking, this is going to change my whole business. I learned things that I didn't know, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to implement them. But you lose that charge really quick. It's one thing to go sit there disconnected from your business. You get super amped up, and then you go back and it's like, you move the ball forward a little bit, but within 6 months, it's new problems. Even if you solve something with that, it's like it's a new problem. And so the blind spot to me is really just the motivation. It's the I mean, that's obviously the reason for the name, but it's the staying fired up part of it that is difficult, because we don't just get to stay at some cool event, staying at a hotel and seeing all these big, educational events and all these, vendors that are offering services and help and things that we didn't know about. And so when I look at the group of contractors that I do business with or have done business with, and if anybody's looking at their screen, I've shared it on the screen here. And I tried to take notes of everybody whenever they said who they were and where they're from. I know a lot of you, but just tried to throw it up on the map here. Because this is something that I'm going to keep, and I want to keep adding to it. I want to create a mesh that covers as much of the area as we can, hopefully not even just in North America, but eventually everywhere. But I look at this already and I see some areas where it's like, there's some of you guys that are pretty close together. There's some of you guys that, are just like, a couple of people said they know each other. And I hope that, it's already happening where there's an offer of support. But if there's not, that's the goal. The objective here is going to be motivating you guys to help yourselves and to do things that are going to put more money in your pocket. And then also creating an organization that's actually made up of people who want to be something for somebody else or for other people. I want there to be paying it forward, paying it backwards, paying it sideways. I want there to be information that is had in these, but I also want it to become something that's more like a family than a family reunion, if that makes
sense. Hey, Jeremiah, do you
mind
if I jump in for a second? I mean, I'm so really stoked about working with these guys and the vision that you have, I think, of connecting all of us, that feeling of we're all alone. SFWW definitely had a big impact on feeling like making us feel we're not alone. We have brothers and sisters out there going through the same things, facing the same challenges, but you also see how different people act and think and approach these common problems. Some are better than others as far as, quality, customer service, pride in your work, that kind of thing. And I think the people that you've invited here, the ones I know are all, I think, quality people. And I think one of my goals, I think you also have this belief, is that by doing this, we're going to help us all become the best versions of ourselves and our businesses and create a network where there's always going to be this excellence available to a customer. So we may not all be the biggest in our markets. We may not be the best known, but I think what I would like to see for myself, and I think a lot of folks on here would be like, if somebody asks, who should I have do this complicated, difficult, or interesting job? I'm hoping it's going to be one of us, because we can all elevate each other, share our skills, share our failures, share our successes, and share our techniques, and say, all right, this is what works, not just for one job, but for every day, for the business, and at home and out in the community. So that's what I'm really excited about. Like, we make more money, but we also do good work, have happy customers, and then elevate the industry from, step by step. There's always the problems that we have with, somebody mentioned the 60 board foot guy, the 60 cent board foot guys, and the hacks. And I mean, we've all been tempted to go down that road where, like, I just need cash flow. I just need something in that bank account to pay my bills. Even if I'm losing money on this job, we've all faced that temptation. Let me just take that crappy job. And I'm hoping we can elevate ourselves to the point where that isn't even a question, that the people we want to work with are lining up to work with us. So, the fact that you focused on education, but, not just the fancy book learning, as people would call it, but like, how are we organizing ourselves? How are we talking to our customers? How are we talking to our employees? And making, educating ourselves on all the nitty gritty of our businesses, not just how to pull a trigger, but also all the other parts, because everybody's got so many different things to share here. So that's one of the things, like that's definitely a big attraction about this. We can together, we're stronger united than we are individually. So I think our chances of accomplishing that are much higher.
Absolutely. And I think, to speak to that, I think that, so one of the things that we will have in every single one of these calls after today is going to be what we're calling speaker spotlight, which is going to be that we are going to take somebody who's RSVP to be on the next call. And for that call, that person is going to get 20, 25 minutes of that call to discuss things that they are facing, so their business. And then it becomes everybody else's job to then support the person in that. And I mean, on the call, sure. But, these are going to be 60, 90-minute calls. We're going to be limited on what we can do. But it's, I'm going to take it upon myself first. If somebody on this call says they're having an issue with closing sales with clients on retrofit where, they're up against a guy who's did something that's not really appropriate or whatever, I'm going to take it on myself to immediately reach out to that person after the call and say, this is how I would approach that situation. This is how I did approach that situation. But, to me, Fired Up is about the business side of things. I tell guys all the time, and I'm not embarrassed to say it in front of all of you, when it comes to the technical application, when it comes to spraying and dialing in foam, nobody that's ever worked with me would call and ask me for help with that. I've never sprayed a full set, not once. I mean, I've pulled the trigger a lot, but I've never sprayed a full set on a job. I started my business and it just, through dumb luck, it blew up so quick that I was not even in the back of the rig. It was already, dealing with sales and job costing and trying to negotiate deals with providers. But to me, the name of the game for any business owner is profit. It's money. It is not, there's a whole lot to be said about doing good work and doing all this, but I think that there's a mentality in the industry that everybody that's doing the wrong thing is doing it maliciously or intentionally. And one of my favorite sayings, and I've said it a lot, guys that have talked to me before on here know it, that one of my favorite sayings is that you never assign to malice what can be attributed to ignorance, which means most people that are doing dumb shit are doing it because they're dumb, not because they're bad. Now, there's companies out there that, sure, they're out there intentionally doing substandard work. But most of the guys that I talk to in this industry, they ask me something, they come to me and they take my class and I explain something to them. And then they say, oh my gosh, well, I've been doing this thing that you just said was wrong. What do I do? And the first thing I say is like, yeah, I did too. The word Manish used the word hack. Guys, I was a hack. I was 100% a hack. I was 25. I came in the market. I undercut the pricing in the market bad. And anybody who is a contractor in Oklahoma City will tell you that I was the most hated guy in Oklahoma, period. My business blew up and I was predominantly working for home builders. Who here knows how you grow a business really quick only working for home builders? You work cheap. That's how you do that. You don't do it working for a bunch of guys that really don't give a crap about what the quality's like. I was too cheap. And then worse than that, I knew very little about what was going on anyways. Spray foam was completely new to me. My family business I never even saw spray foam where I grew up. So I did a lot of things wrong. And I never once, I think you guys, anybody who knows me well enough to know that I have a passion for building science and for understanding the optimization of the envelope. I wasn't doing any of that stuff because I was some kind of shyster or some kind of hack or somebody that was just like, I don't care what the right way is. I'm here to make money, because I didn't make any money. I was doing all that and I was losing money. There was nothing in it for me other than I was ruining myself in the industry. And so I think that's important. And that's the thing that I hate to see. And frankly, it's something that I will shut down quickly and very hard. We're not going to bash on somebody who's doing something out of ignorance. We're going to educate people who do things out of ignorance, period. And then at that point, now we don't have to wonder if they're a hack. If I educate you on something that you're doing that is wrong or dangerous, there's going to create issues. And then you continue after that point to do it. Well, now you're definitely a hack. Now we have established that, and we know you're not a good fit for Fired Up. Now we know that. But prior to that, we're going to operate in good faith, because here's my mentality. And I mean this, and there are manufacturers and distributors on here, and I have great working relationships with lots of people that are on every side of the business. I've got developer and home builder and architect clients. I've got manufacturer clients, distributors, and then obviously contractors. But I will say this right now. I talk about pricing. I talk about industry best practices that include pricing, that include how you operate your business, because this group is about operating your business at its fullest potential, dialing in your business the way that you want your phone dialed in, and you want every other aspect of what your guys are doing dialed in, right? That's what this group is. That is what we're focused on. And I'm going to tell you right now that as far as I am concerned, it is contractors against everybody else. And I don't mean against in that we're going to war with them, but what do you think True Team is doing right now? What do you think IBP is doing right now? You think their divisions don't share pricing? You think that Service Partners isn't telling their True Team locations like what the contractors are paying for material in that market? You think that every aspect of this industry, they're not communicating these things to one another? We have to, by law, shut down. We cannot have price fixing or price signaling or things of that nature. But it is absolutely not price fixing for a guy that is in Saskatchewan to have a conversation about the numbers of his business and operating it and trying to maintain profitability with Karen in Florida. And if you don't like that, it's because you've been taught and you have been trained that it's bad for a guy with one rig who barely makes enough to keep his business open and survive is somehow a villain to billion-dollar organizations who are undercutting and using the data that they have against you at every turn. But you're the villain because you said, oh, well, I charge $1.95 for X. That's what's wrong with the industry, is that small contractors are getting closed out. And if small contractors don't unify now, by the time my kids are old enough to be contractors, small businesses are not going to exist in most of the construction industry. It is being consolidated and volumized, and it's working against you. And so if you don't start today and say, I'm going to put profit at the front of my business, I am not going to accept anything lower than this. And anybody be damned who's going to try to step between me and that. That's what this is about. This is about getting people who are for the industry to understand that if small contractors succeed, it is better for the industry at large. I would much rather see 100 guys like Chris or Tyrell or Manish or Howard, guys that I know, guys whose work I have seen. Scott, I mean, I can sit here and name everybody on here. Guys whose work I've seen, guys who I have seen take this insane initiative to sacrifice the little bit of time and money that they have to learn more, to be better equipped to educate their customers, to do what is right by the people who are going to live in that home, and then every family who's going to live in that home after that. And I'm telling you right now that giving them a cheap bid is not what's good for that family. You making money doing what's right, that is optimization. Profit is 100% justified at any level. And I want to explain a story to you. So I had a contractor here in Oklahoma City who's young and just getting started. And he has been making less than 30% direct margin on his foam jobs. He's pushed a lot into predominantly working with new home builders. And a lot of them are the same new home builders that I worked with. And I told him, like, those guys are going to beat you down on price. No matter what price you give them, they're going to say, well, I got another bid from a guy that's $1,800 lower. And that builder doesn't care if you lose money at all. And 90% of the time, they're lying when they say that anyways. But I told him, I'm like, you need to change the way that you approach these conversations, and you need to start working more towards retrofit. And so it's a long story, and I can't get into the full details of it today, but I got him a lead on a retrofit job where they're going to remove a bunch of cellulose and blow in foam. And it was 1.9 sets of open cell foam on a roof line in this home. There was a little bit of running some dryer vents out and building a demising wall and a couple of things. It was pretty small, but it was 1.9 sets of foam. I said, you're going to ride with me, and we're going to pretend like I'm just a sales guy for your company and that you're with me. And I want you to watch me approach this conversation. And so we went. The guy allegedly had two other bids, both for one guy it was a 5.5 inches nominal on the roof line. The other guy was 6-inch foam open cell on the roof line. And so I went and I told the guy I was going to bid him 9.5 inches of open cell foam. And I'm not going to get into the details of that. And I'm sure a few people think it's ridiculous, but I'm not here to argue building science with anybody, because proof's in the pudding as far as I'm concerned, but we'll talk about that stuff more later. But because of the way that I talked to the guy, and because I explained to him things in a way from my perspective, which is having a long history in building science, and then also being in a position where I could approach the conversation that firmly, because, and I get it, wasn't my business, right? Easy come, easy go. He got the job for $17,900. He did 1.9 sets of open cell foam. His guys were there for 1 day on the removal and 2 days on the foam. He profited $13,900. And he was like, I feel like I ripped that guy off. And I was like, call him and ask him to leave you a review. And then you'll know if you ripped him off. And he the next bid from there that guy had was for $10,000 something. So he was way higher, closer to double than not. The guy left him a 5-star review, and he said he could not believe how much of a difference it made in the comfort of his home. This was still Oklahoma summer, 110, 112 degrees outside. And the guy said that his OG&E, which is our electric provider here, their projected use for his bill for that month was something like he was going to save $290 or something over what he'd been paying, which his attic was in bad shape. There was duct leakage and all kinds of junk. But anyway, Sky leaves him a 5-star review. And I said, so that guy accepted your bid and he left you a 5-star review and he's happy with it. So where did you rip him off? Well, I could have done it for less. And I told him I could have done it for more. The issue with the industry, and I'm not harping on you guys because you guys have been beat down, you guys have been rode hard and hung up wet. But the issue with the industry is that we have all become convinced that we should be happy with a lifestyle that doesn't even achieve middle class. We should be happy with buying a $150,000 rig, getting insurance that's one of the most expensive insurance codes in the entire construction industry, listing ourselves as a manufacturer of record, which means that there's no statute of limitations. If something goes wrong and you are a 95-year-old man and something you did means that somebody died, it will always come back to you. And I'm not saying this to scare you, but I'm telling you right now, if you go do all of that for 3 days on a job site and then you feel bad about making $13,000, which ain't nearly what it used to be, then you've been convinced that there's something inherently it's just something about the spray foam industry that means that that's all that we're worth. When the reality is that, guys, your bid's always going to be more. No matter what, your bid's going to be more than the other bid that they got. So we might as well just operate under the assumption that the name of the game is just being better salespeople, not being cheaper spray foam contractors, being better salespeople, right? Closing the deal the way that we want it at the price that we want. And yeah, that's scary. But I'm telling you right now, if I have any role in this to play whatsoever, it's going to be to support you guys in that. To support you guys in making more money next year than you've ever made. Not more than you made this year, more than you ever made. And that's what I want you guys fired up about. Not about who's going to be posting the sexiest pictures in the chat every week when we have this call. I'm going to have manufacturers, I'm going to have distributors on these calls. To you guys, if you don't understand how a group that is focused on the success of contractors, small businesses, salt of the earth people who are out there grinding this out in markets that are just chewing them up and spitting them out more often than not. If you don't understand how an organization that gets together every week that's focused exclusively on building those guys up, you're probably not going to like most of what's on these calls. But if you're a manufacturer or distributor who understands that the success of the people that buy from you is your success, then I think that you're really going to like these calls a lot, because that is what this is about. This is about taking the industry back in every way, creating better quality spray foam projects, making sure that the work that's getting done out there pays so much profit that everybody can do the work the right way. There is no need for corner cutting. And I'm telling you right now, it doesn't seem like it for a lot of you guys, but you guys do own the market. You own it by a landslide. TopBuild and IBP don't own the entire market. There's so many 1 and 2 rig guys out there doing fiberglass and spray foam. The industry, you guys united together, you make a much bigger impact than anything that True Team's doing anyways. It mostly comes down to being empowered enough to approach the conversation that way, and not having to wait 6 months to go somewhere and get fired up enough to go back and try to have that attitude. So here's what I'm going to ask from everybody here on the contracting side, because this is the conversation I had with somebody a couple of weeks ago, which was really what kind of was the catalyst of this call happening. Jared Holdeman was a big part of that on this call, because I've been talking to him about wanting to do a lot of these things. And he said, I think his exact words were, well, I'm a doer. So you've been talking about doing this. Like, when are we doing it? Why can't we just do it Monday? And it was like, I laughed, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, here I am talking about starting up an organization called Fired Up, and I haven't done shit with it for 6 months. So, what's the deal here? What? Like, I'm not fired up about this. How do I expect to be able to get anybody else fired up? And so I was like, all right, let's do it. So I started putting together what the game plan was, getting a list of people that I wanted to invite. And it is, guys, if there's somebody you want to invite them. I don't care who they are. I want to grow this and I want to build this, because there's a lot more to come. There's a bigger thing at work here that's going to be what I know will be the biggest resource for spray foam contractors that's ever been, but it's going to take a huge amount of input and effort and investment for me to get it there. And so right now it's more about just getting everybody's mindset right and helping you guys, have some tools and some resources at your disposal. But right now, let's get as many people on here as we possibly can. But I had a conversation 2.5 weeks ago with a guy, and he was wanting to hire a salesperson, but the cost is there. The way that I paid my sales guy was a base salary with a vehicle allowance. I gave him a fuel card, and then I paid him a sliding scale commission, which we'll have training stuff on those types of things as well. But he was like, well, I just can't, I'm not really in a position where I can do that. And, I'm not even paying myself a salary currently, but I don't have time to sell because I'm having to fill all these other gaps, And so I told him, I was like, well, then I was like, how many sets of foam do you do in a week? And he's like, oh, 2 to 4. And I was like, great, let's go with 3. And I asked him, I was like, if you added $400 to the invoice for every set of foam. So let's say that you're doing a set of foam for $4,400 a set. I mean, I know most guys don't sell it that way, but we're just easy numbers, right? You're selling it for $4,400 a set. If you added 400 to that, would you lose those bids? How many of them would you lose? He's like, oh, I don't think I would lose any of them. He's like, maybe 1 or 2 here or there, but I don't think I would lose any. It's like, so do it. Do it right now. And so that's what I want you guys to do. Everything that you bid this week, I want you to go ahead and sit down and put your number together the way that you always would, the way that you come up with your number. Don't change anything about the way that you bid stuff, period. And then I want you to pick a number between $100 and $500. And then I want you to promise yourself that from now on, every time you do a bid, you're going to add that to it. Every single time you're doing a job, if you used to do it for $5,000, I want you to do it for $5,500. And if you can do more, if you can add 1,000, try it one time and see how bad you are at sales, because that's the real answer. It has absolutely almost nothing to do with the industry. It has everything to do with how good or how bad we are at selling our value. But add an amount and then don't stop doing that. And I want you to do it until you get to a place where all of your customers are top performers. Because if you're too busy right now, the solution is not another foam rig. The solution is to raise your prices. If you're running 2 rigs right now and you're like, I'm running absolutely ragged here and I cannot figure out, how to make this work, I need to buy another foam rig. No, you need to take your bottom half of your customers, the ones that pay late, the one that you make the least amount of money on, and then I want you to raise their prices so that if they accept it, they would become the best financial performing customers that you have. Some might leave. Inevitably, you will. That'll be the threshold for somebody. But I guarantee you that if you do that, you'll make more money and you won't be as busy. That's the solution. The solution is getting better at selling your worth and giving yourself that. Stay committed to the fact that you are worth it, and that if there is a guy out there that's undercutting, he's doing it because he is not good at selling at all. If you aren't good enough at selling to be more expensive than somebody else, then you're an estimator who has a really big rig payment. You're not selling. But I think it's a mentality thing. So that's what I want you guys to do this week. Start tacking on $400 or $500 every time you bid. And when you start to be like, oh, what if I don't? I want you to just click it and send it immediately. Don't talk yourself out of it, period. And if the person comes back and says something, then you get to selling. And you're not going to talk about how bad the other guy is. Talk about how good you are. Next week, the topic is going to be approaching sales in a way that creates a positive relationship with the customer, not a negative one, because again, all this is going to come back to profit, 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 profit. But that's what I want you guys this week. That's what stays in the front of your mind. You're going to make money. You're going to eat first. We're not doing favors for builders. We're not doing favors for homeowners. We're not doing favors for people that are going to make us wait 2 months before we can get our money out of them. We're going to take care of us and our family. We're going to take care of our guys. We're going to get paid first. Then we'll worry about what everybody else has got going on. Period. So I'm going to look at the chat a little bit here, and then I've got 22 minutes, so I'll let anybody field questions until then. Let's see here. Jared said, if you can add money to your bid and you're not, what is wrong? And then Manish's answer is perfect. It is fear. It's either fear or self-loathing. And I'm telling you right now, anytime that you have a thought that you're not worth it or that people wouldn't give you that, that's self-loathing. My wife has a PhD in psychology, so she gives me this kind of shit all the time, and it's frustrating, but it's when I stop and I think about it, it's like, oh yeah, no, that's exactly what that is. That is self-loathing. Whenever I think I'm not, I don't deserve, like the company I have built and all the effort I put into this and all the skills that me and my guys have, and I'm going to tell myself I'm not worth another $400 or $800 or $1,800. I don't care what it is. If you know your work is good, you don't apologize for it and you price it appropriately. Eric, I typically add 5% at the top of our for maintenance and try to add that into a savings account for when stuff needs fixed or replaced. Okay, I want you to take it to 7.5% today. Right now, 7.5% from now on. And if you think that sounds crazy, then you're probably going to think a lot of other things I say in the future are crazy. But guys, these are not, I will never say something here that's me just wondering how it's going to work. I work with hundreds of contractors. I have multiple contractors who have worked with me for over 2 years who are making more money this year than they did the year before, who are growing profitability. A lot of them are not growing their sales. I would actually say most of my customers don't grow their sales very much. They do a little bit, but I don't care about the sales. If your gross sales go up by 5%, I want your profit to go up by 10. That's my mentality. I want you to make money. Gross sales doesn't do you a bit of good. Okay, we've got 20 minutes. Does anybody have a question about what this is going to entail with the calls or any of the other objectives in the future, or just about anything that we've talked about, or questions you have, or something you need help with? Whoever shoots first gets to go. So I'll let you guys sort it.
I got a question.
Okay.
So I've talked to you about this before, Jeremiah, about having manual J's ran on the house.
Yep.
What the result of it is, AC guys are basically guessing, and it's in my area, it's getting to well, let's just do bats in the walls and foam the attic on a new construction home because we don't want the problems. And so right now it's I've paid for a manual J on a house, and another one I bid it in there, but it's a remodel that they had no plans to. So I sat down and actually drew up the house so I can turn something in. They're gonna take it so they can rent a manual J on it. We're kind of going back in time. We have the technology to make this shit right, and the AC guys are not doing the job, and builder as well. So I'm kind of forcing it in play. When none of our stuff gets inspected out here, and our code inspector, I've actually talked to him and told him, this has been code back since 2015 to have this done. And he didn't even know the code. He actually flipped through his code book and seen it in there. He's like, all right. He was against it all the way through the call until the very end when he's seen that. So now he's all right, everything built in Lexington and Giddings, before they can get a permit, they have to have a manual J. So we'll see how that goes. If it's we just switched to 2018 codes here, and 40 miles down the road there in 2021, it's bidding's fun. You got to explain to them why you're bidding what you're bidding, why you're higher.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even don't even know what they're bidding, don't know what code they're in, don't care. It's just it's already set in their mind what it's going to be, and cheapest bid usually gets things.
Yep.
So yeah, it's definitely information for the people, and let them know why you're higher, what you're doing. And it's I get a lot of, well, nobody's going to inspect it, so why do I do it? And I get a lot of folks to sign off on things. Well, I know about it, so it's going to come back on me. If I don't explain it to you, tell you, then at least you know about it. If you want to sign off on it, that's your business. And
so I'll say two things to that. First, you're 100% correct. Getting manual J's input into the code is a double-edged sword. And I learned it kind of the same way you did. Like, I was fighting for that and a few other things for a long time. But it's difficult when you're working with a general contractor. That's usually the conversation. It's like, why are we doing what we're doing? Now this is confusing. Like, I got to do a manual J, but I feel like if I go with bats in the wall or whatever, then I don't have to deal with this confusing thing that I don't understand or whatever it is. That's always, the builder's always just like, oh, well, what's cheaper is also easier. Like, it's a win-win for me. And you're saying, well, yeah, but it's not what's best for the house or for energy efficiency or whatever. And the builder, again, like, now you're in that struggle of, and why do I care about that? And sadly, it's the same issue in the home building industry as what we have in the spray foam industry, which is that it's also being consolidated. How do you be like, Chris, you're in Texas. Imagine you're going to go be a home builder tomorrow, but DR Horton and LGI and, Lennar and all these guys are out there building. You're immediately going to be like, well, I don't care what my insulation contractor tells me about how much more energy efficient my house is going to be. Like, DR Horton selling 10,000 a month here, and they're not, they're doing fiberglass. So what do I care? Whatever the story is. And so again, so there's two things to that. One, you're doing the right thing. And what sucks about it, and I'm going to teach you guys how to have this conversation, but fiberglass houses also have to have a manual J. And most fiberglass houses in 2024 also already need fresh air because they're tight enough that they're hitting that threshold. And a lot of guys think, well, no, fiberglass houses can't get that tight, but the threshold is about 5.5 air changes per hour at 50 pascals. From there, ASHRAE 62.2. That's rough math. It's an average, but about from there, ASHRAE 62.2 kicks in and says the house has to have fresh air. And 5.5 ACH isn't really that. I mean, the advances we've made with windows have gotten us to that point. Windows don't leak nearly as much as what they used to. And then you add into that, zip board and gasketed plates and, gasketed can trims or whatever. And so that's one of the first conversations I have is like, hey, I'm just going to make sure that you understand that you have to do loads regardless of what insulation is used. The only benefit is if you go with me on foam, you're going to have the load done, but I'm probably going to be able to get your cost down a little bit on your HVAC if I can get a half ton off of it by doing. But either way, you got to have the expense and the headache of doing it, period. And so, and then on the other side of that is I say lose fast a lot. And I think I don't do a good job of explaining it, but in the sales world, you can lose fast and save yourself a whole lot of headache. Because if I'm talking to a home builder and he's like, nope, I don't care what you have to say about foam, I do bats in the walls, I'm like, all right, I'll price it with bats in the walls. And I know a lot of guys, like spray foam guys, want to die on the hill of like, I don't do fiberglass. Best margins I made were on bats. I made 55, 60% margins on bats. Now, sadly, the dollar amounts were small, but if I could do, $2,200 worth of bats in the walls and foam the roof line, I make 60% on the bats. I make 40% on the roof line. Well, now guess what? It's a whole lot easier to spray roof line that doesn't have to get shaved and then get my foam rig on to the next job and let some jackass put the bats in here for me for $17 an hour and move on. The important thing is that you don't, educate yourself out of the whole job by trying to get the builder to do something you don't want them to do. But there's a couple of different ways to approach it. But for everybody in the group, this is why I always say that retrofit is the most important section of the industry for the spray foam industry, and it will be for the next 20 years. This won't change. The 2021 codes are going to start to kick in. And for those of you in climate zones 1, 2, and 3, and a little bit of 4, the 2021 codes are going to be your saving grace, because closed cell foam is going to be the only way that millions of homes can stay with 2x4 exterior walls and still meet the codes. That's crucial to understand. If they stick with fiberglass, they got to go to 2x6 walls. But if they stick with foam, yeah, my closed cell is going to be more than my open cell was, but I can get you to R19 in a 2x4 and save you tens of thousands of dollars on the framing. Just make sure they don't put a vapor barrier on the outside of the wall when you do it, because then, and again, that's a conversation for another time. But that's my take on it, is if you can do bats, just make sure your margins are sky high on them. Try to close the gap when you bid it to the builder. Be like, well, look, here's my price for bats. Here's my price for this. This is better, but do what you want. But again, you're doing the right thing with manual J's. It has to happen. It's the only way that we're going to stop having all these issues and stuff that comes back on us when it's the HVAC guy's fault. Because it's over and over and over again. It's bad sizing, and then foam gets blamed. But Tyrell, I think you had to raise your hand there.
Yeah, I wanted to get this question out of the way, but I recently hired a salesman. He came over from Top Build location that closed their doors back in August here in Amarillo.
Yep.
And he's really good with people and stuff, but he's coming from a company that was tough on their pricing, and I thought I could win him over and have him understand profits and margins and start showing him what it took. But he's constantly just coming back, and he's like, man, that's just too high. They'll never buy it. And I've been working with him for close to a month now. I guess if someone has some advice, or I've put him through different training, I've showed him the numbers, I've opened my whole books up to him and, showing him why we can't price at those low points, but he just keeps coming back with, well, they're not going to buy. And
I would write him up for not doing his job, because he's a salesperson, not an estimator. And yeah. I'm not saying that as a joke. I did it. I wrote sales guys up, and then after 3 times I fired them for that stuff, because I said, what did we talk about in your interview? I hired you to be a salesperson. And I'm telling you right now, you're doing yourself a disservice by trying to explain to him why you can't go that low. You tell him that you're not going that low. Because hey, I don't need the practice, man. You worked for a company that does shitty work, substandard work, and all they had to go on was pricing. And then you came to work for me. What about knowing me for the last 3 months has made you think that I'm going to accept that? You don't owe him an explanation at all. That's what your prices are. And if he is not good at his job, then you do the same thing that you would as a spray foam guy that kept costing you money by overspraying or wasting material. Sales guy's job is to sell. And if he's not very good at it, then pricing is what he's going to default to every time. Go get somebody who's good at sales, and you're going to hate them. Contractors hate good salespeople. They're the worst. They're the reason we don't go to car dealerships. That's why we all buy our trucks on Facebook Marketplace, because we don't want to talk. But salespeople sell, and you're gonna hate them. I hated all my sales guys. They're the dirtiest, grossest bunch of freaking. But they sell and they make you money, and that's their job.
Gee, thanks, Jeremiah.
Well, I'll tell you the same thing I said to my sales manager. You're a terrible salesperson, but you do a good job.
Yeah, it's very true.
Sometimes you can get away with good old boy thing. And when you're selling to contractors, I think it's what works. But when you're selling to builders and homeowners, like, there's only one kind of sales experience they're used to, and that's sales. You got to.
You hit the nail on the head. Good job.
Nick.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Chris, I was listening to you. You mentioned that you'd paid for a manual J-load. Is that what you said?
Yes.
So at first I sat here and thought, well, why would you do that? But then I sit back as everybody kept talking. I thought, well, maybe you could use that to your benefit. So we work for a lot of builders, of course, but most of our stuff's custom. So we also have the homeowners involved. And of course, like everybody, they're looking for the cheap side. Did you find when you pay for a manual J, I mean, I think that's a good idea to solidify what you're telling them and to make a sale. Does that work in that realm? You're right, basically.
It was, I grew up in this town and went to school with the AC guy and the homeowner. And that was one of the houses that they're like, well, we're just going to do bats on the walls because I've heard about this, blah, blah, blah. And I said, look, let me talk to the AC guy. I want to do something different because this is how it needs to be done. And so it was, the job was mine, whatever way I went with it, but we're kind of implementing this just to kind of get the AC guys on board, really. So they ran the load calculations at 74 degrees. I guess that's what's code. And I know these people, so it was AC guy, and they have their AC set at, 69, 70. So I told the guys running the manual J, can you run it any lower? He said the lowest I can run it is 72 degrees. Well, they did the report at 74, and then they did the report at 72, and it came up a different coil. So the AC guy was, he was he's like, well, it's only 600 CFM difference or whatever, it's however they run those. But I guess the important part is they did the CFM in each room, and he liked that. He's like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. So my point of it was to get the AC guy on board, and because a lot of them, they don't, it's expensive. Oh, it's an expensive program, and bidding houses, they can't do it, of course, because everybody's bidding against everyone else, and if they don't get the house, then that's money that they lose. So it's I guess we're at the beginning stages of trying to change it here. So that's kind of what's going on with it. I'm going to implement it on every one of them, as opposed to telling them, well, I'm not going to touch your house unless you have a manual J ran on it, because I don't want to be a part of what's been going wrong. And to the point where I'm drawing up this crap just to get one done. And hopefully that works.
It'll work.
That's legitimate. I mean, we've got one or two, we're in a small area, so we got one or two contractors every year. When it gets really cold, I get 2 or 3 phone calls, and I know what they're about. They got water on their windows and doors, because it's the same contractor that gives this. The guy's a great guy. If you want to go to Radiant Heat System, the guy's a genius. But when it comes to Forced Air System, he's a nice guy. I'm going to put it that way. So the talk is working. It's taken me 5 or 6 years. The talk is working to understand the manual J loads and what can happen, what can't happen. So, I mean, I think your idea is pretty good. I don't think we're at the not going to touch your house scheme yet, although I don't think that's a bad idea. But I had never thought about just saying, hey, how about I pay for a manual J load, and let's talk about the, what happens after that. Let's see what your house is capable of, and let's see where we can reduce costs in the HVAC system. What we can do to help you out in the efficiency of the home and the health of the home. going forward. So good idea. I think I'm going to take that from today. That's not a bad idea. We have a HVAC contractor that's great in this area. Manual J's are free from his company, and they're more than happy to do them. But I think that's a great avenue. Good idea. I'm glad you said something.
Chris is the man. Scott?
I just got a second here, but just to kind of touch on that, not to pimp Jeremiah out, but I guess it is what he does for a living. What we kind of decided to do with that is most of our humidity issues show their face in like March to April in the shoulder seasons. So we're going to set up, and I think a lot of it's like what Jeremiah talked about earlier. A lot of it's ignorance, and they just don't know any better. They don't know what it is they're screwing up until they screw it up. They don't know what all they can affect until it's too late. We're going to put together all of the custom home guys and all of the HVAC guys within about a 45-mile radius of me that could ever have any inkling to work on a home. We're going to put them together and do basically a building science Manual J type seminar for them, just to show those guys the importance of like short cycling and rule of thumb applications where we should 750 square feet per ton or whatever it is. Basically, if you can get all those guys in a room, feed them and let them hear it from somebody else other than the guys to constantly sell them something, then maybe they listen a little bit better and maybe they understand it and they don't think that I'm just trying to do it to sell them more product.
Yep. And that's what I did on all my stuff. There was no job I liked better than whenever it was a custom home, like a big custom home. And I got to kind of be in a conversation with the builder and then also the homeowner, where, it's kind of this cohesive working together. And so it was great for me because it's like, well, I'm a rater. I do ACA Manual JSD. And so it's like, man, I'd take those plans. And the first thing I would do is I would run a projected rating with like code minimum fiberglass R13 bat in the wall, R30 blow in, and then boom, my spray foam envelope, like the full premier package. And then I would not only have a projected rating showing the energy rating index score, but then I would do a load for both of them. And then I would kind of work up a presentation and be like, and I forced it. I was like, I want to have a meeting. Like, I'll buy the homeowner and the builder lunch. Like, but I want to be able to sit down and look you in the eye and have this conversation, because most of you guys, if you can just get at the table, you've already got 50% of the battle done. Because it's like trying to sell this much value and knowledge in a phone call or an email is hard. I'm not going to say his name, but there's a guy that's in the spray foam industry and he's on Spray Foam Worldwide, and he has hated me for all of the time I've been on there. If I'm posting, he's been, vehemently arguing and doing stuff. And so he texted me on a Sunday of all days, so yesterday, and he's like, hey, could I ask you a question about something? Will you call me? So I called him. We were on the phone for 3.5 hours. My wife was like she's walking him off. She's like, who the hell are you talking to? And we're sitting there talking, and I'm talking to him about all this stuff that I say and the stuff that I teach and stuff. And I get to the end of the phone call and he's like, man, I don't understand why you don't just, teach everybody all this stuff, like do a podcast or something. Like, and I'm like, that's all I do is post about this stuff all the time. You just are receiving it better because we're on the phone and you can hear my voice and understand. Like, it's much easier to communicate that than it is to try to just make some big 18 paragraph long post. And guys, I'm telling you right now my job is this education, this like educating guys on building science and thermodynamics and codes. And I'm telling you right now, I've given up on the long posts that I make on Spray Foam Worldwide and stuff because it doesn't work. It doesn't matter how much data I try to present. Think about how quick the water gets muddied there. And we live in a world where people get their information on these little 90-second long videos. So I did this thing. I tried it out yesterday because my kids there's this trend going around, I guess, on TikTok or YouTube about doing it's like 3-word answers only is the game. And it was like, and they're doing it, and it's like it's hilarious, the stuff that these kids come up with. Like, we're going to ask you a question, or you have to explain something, but you're only allowed to use 3 words. And so I did one on Spray Foam Worldwide yesterday, and it hit me whenever my kids were doing it that I always talk about building science, and I say, until you can explain it to a 5-year-old, you don't know it well enough to sell it to a builder, period. And you probably don't know it well enough to sell it to a homeowner. And so it's like I started thinking of all these different building science and thermodynamics concepts and trying to imagine how I would use only 3 words to explain what was going on. And so the one that I posted on there yesterday was what it was: explain in 3 words or less why things expand when they get hot. And then Bart Bonanno posted and said molecule mosh pit. And it was the funniest shit. Like, I was laughing my ass off this morning, which is exactly what's going on. But I think that that's a big part of like what I'm trying to accomplish, is to help you guys be that knowledgeable and then be confident enough to not put it in an email. You should be confident enough to exactly what Chris is doing. You take that manual J and that, any other paperwork, and then you go sit down with them, and you're like, and you can explain it to them in a way that it makes sense. And it's expensive, but I mean, I'll be doing some videos on teaching you guys how to use a site called CoolCalcs, which is basically ResCheck for loads. And they actually have a full program that is ACCA approved manual JSD, but they've got a free website. You can check it out. It's called CoolCalcs, where you can do a simple load, kind of like what a ResCheck is to a code compliance report. And I use RightSoft because I obviously do a lot of 3D modeling on HVAC systems, because we use CAD for commercial high-rise HVAC systems where we have to model it in 3D. But if I didn't have to do stuff like that, CoolCalcs is a great system. And obviously, I love it when you guys bring me a whole bunch of loads, because my guys do it, and it's a great revenue stream. But for what Chris is talking about, and for you really turning this into an asset for your business, I do think it's kind of important to not just rely on me, but learn how to do it yourself. Even if you still need to rely on somebody to do them for you most of the time, there's knowing what they are and how to have a conversation with your customer with it. And then there's what it's like when you know how to do it. Once you know how to do it, you see the envelope in a completely different way than you do as an insulation contractor. So, but this is exactly what I wanted these calls to be. Like, Chris joins call and immediately has got everybody like thinking about something that can work for their business. So I'm 5 minutes late for another call, but guys, this is great. I hope everybody knows, if you need anything, you reach out to me. If it's sales, if it's issues with sales guys, or building out a new part of your business, whatever it is. But I really hope you guys will make the commitment to being on here every Monday, because now it's going to be very specific topics and a lot of really intense and really valuable stuff to help you build your profitability. So thank you, gentlemen, so much.
I got one thing real quick, Jeremiah.
Yes, sir.
Well, I got you. You're hard to get hold of sometimes. You're a busy man. But can we do a report on that blower door test?
Yep. Yeah.
They need,
I was gonna see if I could call you after this call, actually, because I wanted to get the plans and highlight which units you had done so that I could put that in the report.
Yes, no problem.
That way it's on there and they can see which units it was. So
okay.
I'll call you after, or I'll shoot you a text after I get off this call, and then we'll jump on Zoom or something and do it.
Okay, perfect.
Later.
See you guys.
Thank you.